Welcome back to the Beast Game Podcast, and let's talk about the conclusion, the series finale, the maybe not so good season of Game of Thrones that has put some closure to certain things and left some other things a little bit open. Let's start with Leah. What did you think of this season of Game of Thrones?
As a whole was good until the last 30 minutes of the final episode. The final episode was garbage. The season itself was not that bad, though they did rush some things. Went from 0 to 60 on some of the characters. However, at least even when they went from 0 to 60, some of these things had been hinted at, alluded to. And so if you were a Game of Thrones fan, you could fill in the gaps. Those last 30 minutes were absurd.
Matt, the final season of Game of Thrones.
Final season, in my opinion, was rushed. I don't know why we waited 2 years for 6 episodes. Like, where was this time being allocated to? Because the way they portray the characters, the books weren't finished. After, I believe, season 6, and correct me if I'm wrong, Keith, there was no book in the first couple seasons, particularly season 1 through 6. It was very well crafted. Storylines were very well. We are already emotionally invested in these characters. Very familiar to how Marvel did their MCU. Regarding this season, they took a DC approach where everything was quick. I think where they really fell apart, in my opinion, was the Bell episode. It's Bells, either one. The one where they burnt up all the citizens. What doesn't make sense is Daenerys, who was supposed to be the one changing the world and changing the time and compassion and freeing people, all of a sudden decided that she was going to kill them, preaching it for 6 seasons.
I'm the mother of dragons.
Well, I'll rebuttal later.
As being the mad queen all of a sudden after preaching compassion and humility, that didn't make any sense. And with Arya, she had this gift and talent to be a master assassin, and she didn't use any of it for season 8. What was the whole point of her to be this master assassin if she wasn't going to use it at all for season 8?
She killed the Night King.
As a master assassin?
Yeah, no one saw it coming.
Where was her...
A flying halo jumping to shake that dude.
My issue with that is we built up this White Walker. His death seemed very inconsequential. It was so quick.
So, Keith, what is your view on the final season?
It suffered for some of the pacing issues from last season. There was a transition between them going great distances that usually would take months. I understand what was happening. Basically, the earlier seasons, multiple episodes to show people traveling from one place to another. Barring that, there was also a number of things. I thought that the episodes themselves, with them being self-contained as they were well done. The Long Night was excellent in my opinion. Extremely suspenseful. Lots of good action. I thought the Bells was pretty good. I mean, they accomplished what they wanted to. Matt, you felt tension. You felt that who's going to live, who's going to die. You really felt it. The writing was good. I thought the execution was good. But unfortunately, they made some poor choices in terms of how they would go about it. This ending feels like something the writer, George Martin, would put together. Kind of got that feel to it, like that would be the big kind of twist. Unfortunately, this was not the time to kind of throw a twist in there. Like, we'd already been hit with enough twists. It was a time to kind of give the Hollywood ending. If you know what I mean, a Hollywood ending would have worked for this. Basically, the first 2 episodes were built up. Winterfell being showing the army's position to the north for the assault by the White Walkers. The second episode was the more fan service than anything else.
All the people that aren't Cersei teaming up against her.
Exactly. Yeah, they were all getting together, having drinks. Well written with good conversations and stuff. And a number of characters kind of did things that were like, Bran and Jaime. Brienne Tarth, large, unattractive woman who ends up becoming this respected knight of the realm. And her getting her knighthood. Jon Snow learning his heritage. The seeds were placed actually in that episode for Daenerys being the Mad Queen. Samuel Tarly's, his character, kind of came forward and confronted or learned that Daenerys had killed his family, his brother and father. He was irked by that, but she was unapologetic about it. They were in the way.
So it seems like a couple of the problems with this season, as someone that used to watch Game of Thrones that just got tired of it. I think Matt tried to get into it about the Night King, the White Walkers, and maybe that storyline not being as fleshed out as it should have been, that they weren't that much of a threat in the end. Comments?
If you watch The Long Night, and that entire episode just showed you just how much of a threat they were. There was no stopping them. They would have lost if Arya hadn't gone ahead and killed the Night King the way she did. No question about that. All the strategies went out the window. None of it worked. Even the dead. Daenerys lost most of her army doing that, confronting them. She lost most of her army. They ended up being separated. Winterfell got trashed. It's a hot wreck in that mess. If anything, Arya turned out to be almost not a MacGuffin, but overkill, because she just kind of whipped in there and killed him, took him out in one shot. Fan service and that, because that was kind of like a high impact moment.
They used Arya's skills as a measuring stick for how formidable the Walking Dead, as it were, at that point were, because even Arya was having a hard time being able to handle killing all of them. She wasn't just making mincemeat of them like she was doing everybody else in the previous episodes. The people who we would consider the better warriors of the series were all struggling with the icy people. So, like, we saw how horrible they were. I think that was probably one of the better episodes, even though people complained that it was dark, with the pacing for that episode, because I was on pins and needles the entire episode, literally on the edge of my seat, wondering what was going to happen. I think with Daenerys, I disagree with Matt a little bit. So they did hint to her possibly becoming crazy or becoming the Mad Queen, because whenever they would talk about her or they would talk about her family, it was always in reference to the crazy that ran in their DNA and how they easily pop off and lose it. And however, where I do agree with Matt is that I think that they put her to crazy too fast, because in the series, Dany was one of a certain moral code that she did feel it was her job to be a champion of the weak. She was always a champion of the weak. So her going from zero to batshit crazy in one episode was bizarre. It wasn't the fact that she was killing a lot of those people. I had issue with the fact that in Bells, she was killing indiscriminately. If she was killing based on punishment or killing soldiers, that was fine. Daenerys goes hard. Everybody knows Daenerys goes hard. And I kind of like the fact that Daenerys didn't go soft and pussy out on people. She went ahead and just took people out. Bend the knee or else I'm going to kill you. I'm giving you a choice. Whether you live or die is up to you. But she didn't give choices in Bells. She was just burning that city to the ground. And anybody in it, whether they were children, handicapped, or whatever.
I just don't understand how for 7 seasons she went by, like what she said earlier, like a code. As far as bending the knee, she was always like, hey, if you don't bend the knee, I'm going to kill you. 100% get that. Understand, she already had victory at that point.
No, they explained it in the last episode. So all of the seasons, she's always done something hardcore. Like, she always went around and did something hardcore. Like the end of the first season,
having awareness to not having awareness. Because even at that last episode, she had no awareness whatsoever. Said, hey, you killed innocent people. It was totally oblivious to her that she did it.
See, I actually disagree a little, Matt. That's what I think made her cray-cray. She wasn't oblivious. She was actually okay that she killed those people because it went along or fit her end game. That's where I had a problem with it. Like, you're totally okay. And not just like, so there might have been 1 or 2 people where there was a bit of collateral damage. We are talking about hundreds and thousands of people that she just indiscriminately killed. Like, that's where I had issue with her. And any other time that she went hardcore and killed a whole bunch of people, there was a very specific reason, and it was usually due to some type of act of cruelty, whether it was act of cruelty towards women, towards children, what have you. She was then killing in a grand scope of a way.
Killed the slave folks.
Right. I mean, that was hardcore. She was unleashed on those slave people, but again, they had no moral compass, and they were hurting people. And even in that particular case, she showed mercy by when she got the Unsullied, she gave them the choice in that episode and said, you don't have to come with me. You can go as free men, but this is what I'm going to do. And then they chose to follow her. Well, where was that offering to any of these people? And I think what they were wanting us to do was just basically connect the dots to the fact that Daenerys had been extremely isolated. That supposedly was what pushed her over the edge into her madness, which that can happen. She did lose her best friend. Her boo was taken away from her, and he didn't want her no more because that was his auntie. She was feeling some sort of way about the fact that an entire destiny that she had written in her mind, that she was supposed to be the queen of the seven kingdoms, and her destiny was to free everybody, was now taken away when, oops, broke your face. Here's Jon, and he's really the true king. So she lost a whole lot in her perspective. However, I think someone, and this is where they misstepped, someone who had Dany's type of character, who was a champion for the weak, even with that kind of isolation, when she was on top of Drogon and she paused and she was looking down at the city and the bells were ringing and she heard all the screaming, if she had even pulled back at that point, she'd have been okay. At least in my book. She might have went over the edge, but let's pull her on in. Let's rein her in. Let's bring her back in. But that's when she went even harder, straight up murder. That wasn't even manslaughter. I'm killing people, and I feel good about it. And that was against everything that she was.
Because it went against everything that they tried to build up to, and the building up of this particular character, despite everything that happened. I did not like this episode whatsoever, the season. I don't know what the 2-year wait for was. I'm not sure if it was for that one fight scene that they had that lasted, seemed forever and a day.
And I agree. And the really crappy part about it is that in some ways they had the whole #MeToo situation going on in the Game of Thrones with Dany's character. He was supposed to be a strong woman who was smart. She was at least smart enough to get other advisors around her who were able to help her and guide her to do some of the things that she wanted to do. She was brave, yada, yada, the list goes on. I think their opportunity, they could have worked, especially because, as you said, the books were not written. So really, you could completely go off book. You could do whatever it is you want to do. You had the absolute opportunity, and quite frankly, you had the responsibility to the millions of fans who watched the show for a decade. Now, my personal opinion is books are different from TV and film, because with books, you can read it in a shorter sitting, but with television and movies, you have to wait until people are done. And at this point, we waited and we waited and we waited, and then you hand us the bullshit. And what's worse is that when they did it, it didn't even make any damn sense. They didn't even follow characters' real compass that they had for entire seasons, at least not Dany's. Now with Jon had always been extremely naive. You know nothing, Jon Snow, and clearly that was true. He tended to be very naive and very altruistic and always wanted to believe the very best of everybody. That is true, but he always did what was right, even when it was against something that, or something that was going to inevitably hurt him, still did the right thing. At least with Jon's character, that was somewhat true. Dany's character, that wasn't. Bran's character, from the beginning of the series, his whole purpose was to only basically be a revealer of truth. That's what he was. I reveal truth. That's my job. Even when he was a boy, he climbed up the damn window and saw something he wasn't supposed to see, and everybody worried about him waking up and telling the damn truth. Then he's on a daggone sled for several seasons. He ends up in a tree being Hodor. Again, revealing truth, becoming the Raven, and now all of a sudden he goes from someone who doesn't care anything about a crown, doesn't even think about it, to now all of a sudden he's traveled all this way to be king. It's absurd. They could have come up with a different name than Bran the Broken.
I think they followed Daenerys' progression well. She has always done that hardcore thing at the end. She brought that one woman alive. Even Tyrion said it. She was only unleashed on evil people until she's unleashed on good. Now, her reasoning, Grey Worm gave her reasoning for what she did. Everyone that she either was protecting or she saved, they were under the rule of tyrants. And therefore, they didn't have a single choice about what they ruled. People in King's Landing did have a choice. Leave the city or turn on Cersei and overthrow her, like the other people did in the other cities that she conquered, because But
when did they have the choice to come out of the city?
When she was opening the gates to let them all in, when Cersei opened the gates to King's Landing and said, "Come in, come in, come in."
Yes.
That was when they chose her.
A real perspective, you can't even necessarily judge those people against that, because all they would have heard would have been tales of Daenerys from the worst perspective. So those cats were sticking with the devil. They knew. I know this crazy one up here with the bad haircut. I don't know Blondie. So we maybe better just go back inside the castle and stick with her, because at least we know what to expect. But at that point, she didn't even give this town the same option that she gave Sam Tarley's family. If she had said, here's what I'm here to do, it is your choice. I would like you to bend the knee, and at least give them a chance to bend the knee and then get to know her. She didn't even give them that. And that's because, honestly, she was a child throwing a temper tantrum who had a dragon. My boo don't like me. I don't get my throne. And people don't love me the way they love Jon. I'm mad. I'm going to burn the city down. That's basically what she did. Oh, we're salty because we don't get our own way. So now we're just going to go ape shit. Oh, that's right, because none of us can handle being broken up with. We're all crazy. So I didn't even like that whole side of it either. But that is minuscule to the plot development. It was crap plot development. And Bran becoming king was crap plot development, because I feel like they picked him to be king just because no one kind of saw that coming. Oh, let's really make people go, I didn't see that coming, that Bran became king. There are some times where you follow through and kind of do a little bit of what people think you should do. You just do it in a different way. We all knew that most likely in Endgame that Stark wasn't going to make it. We knew they would use time in order to make it happen. We didn't know how it all would unfold. But anybody who had any slight imagination and a sci-fi background knew they were going to use the time stone. And you mean to tell me that these cats who've been in this for 10 years and all this money can't sit down and figure out that it shouldn't be Bran on a throne? Because that would never fly. And it's never going to fly that Sansa's going to look him in his face and say, oh, you be a good king. But no, I'm not doing that. I'm going to go ahead and run this over here by myself. So we need to go ahead and let that go. That's number 2. Number 3, everybody and their grandpa on that daggone little council knew that Jon was the king. The only one with a real claim to the throne. But don't nobody want to run and tell that. Sansa was opening up her mouth real quick before. Now you don't want to open up your mouth and say, someone please get Jon out the dungeon, because he's the only one who really is the king. Like, we need to pipe all of this down. That is the craziest thing I've ever heard. Even Tyrion, even the dwarf was saying, I'm sorry, but you don't get a say. So if he doesn't get a say about that, he doesn't get a say about whether Jon is even in there. Get out of here. This doesn't even make any sense. And I'm not even saying that Jon had to end up being king, but it makes no sense that he ends up on a wall that we don't even need anymore because these cats are dead. You mean to tell me the man that saved the city, the world of Westeros, a daggone wall that isn't even necessary? And Sansa, who ran and told all the gossip, again, another woman move because she can't keep her mouth shut, because it's in her best interest to, quote unquote, tell the truth. Now, all because it was important that Jon was better. No, that's really not why you're doing this, because you're not opening up your mouth now. And Bran, who wasn't going to tell it, now all of a sudden he's not telling it. And Sam knew. Sam's offering up democracy. I mean, seriously, the entire scenario was absolutely absurd. Our last few words are spent on this episode talking about dadgum brothels, basically. Bran was so uninterested in running a country that he comes to his first meeting and then proceeds to be rolled out the back talking about he's going to hop inside a Drogon and see where he's at. You don't think you should be a little bit more interested about what the heck's going on in your own town? Because it's jacked up and burnt to a crisp. You might want to be concerned about that there than a dragon that's miles away. I mean, again, bad king. Why are we making him king? The whole thing was janky and it was lazy writing. They were like, we just want to trick people and make them think that they had no idea what was coming. I would have rather you give me a little bit more. You mean to tell me that Drogon couldn't have burnt Jon even a little? Singed him a little maybe? They burnt up the throne. Even that is a little bit better, that he takes the throne and takes it reluctantly after Drogon tries to burn him to a crisp. And when he's standing there naked and Drogon realizes, oh, well, maybe I shouldn't have tried daddy like that, then Jon really realizes he has much more of a responsibility than just being somebody's bastard. There are so many ways that they could have gone with that. And it also would have made the sacrifice of so many people worth it. Tyrion lost his crazy ass family. Varys died. The Red Witch, I don't know what happened with her. But all these people died, and Jon ends up on a wall. And Sansa ends up queen. And Arya's on a boat going nowhere.
Yeah, Leo went on a tirade.
I did. I'm sorry, y'all. I hogged the podcast, but I have strong feelings about this.